I'm going to tell everybody in school, if you want to see my dad on YouTube, to say on it, the tape never lies. Go sit in the hat.
Yes.
I'm going to...
For Lord Cars.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Man to the people.
You know it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive.
Analytical preparation, that's what Cars is given. Cars don't discriminate, teaching the men and women. Each and every week, Bears nerd to get your focus. Never manipulating stats, lore, cars and hocus pocus. Cars Keys, they're never lost. Checking source, never gonna find a better scouting report. Cars going live with the smartest man, my bestie. Deciphering holes on the defense like Getsy. New show, uniforms, orange with the dark sea. Tape never lies, patrons, this is Cars
You know
Keys.
it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. We gotta break down tape like detectives. No hot takes, just real football perspectives. The Bears nerd dropping science on his terms. TTNL giving Bears press like a perm. Other networks is off with the heads. Stats plus film equals football cred. Analysis like Data Ted tries to shred. McCaskey's letting me cake, we keep the 100 crew fed. Cars Keys, let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. Lord Hines in his party, fill up a goblet. Lord Hines in his party, fill up a goblet.
Hey, look at that. No dramatic entrance. It's Cars Keys Season 2, Episode 29. We're going to get right into it. Bring my guy out here. There he is.
What's up?
Bears nerd.
Thank God it's been a quiet week so far, you know?
Or should I call you Usaid Kasul's arch nemesis?
Yes. That feels pretty accurate, I guess, for some unknown reason.
Fuck with that guy.
Never.
Oh, business. Take a chill, Usaid. It's all good. We're all Bears fans. Anyways, here we are, Cars Keys, getting ready for the big Chicago Bears game this week down in New Orleans. Cars, where's your confidence level? Let's get your prediction right out of the gate of what you're expecting.
I expect a loss just simply because it's a winnable football game, and I don't know which team is going to show up and which play caller is going to show up. We went from like super aggressive in Las Vegas on both sides of the ball back to all 11, no play action, no blitzing, no sending more than 4, and let the Chargers pick us apart. So the Jekyll and Hyde stuff is starting to drive me nuts. So I'm sadly going to go. I think it's going to be a 24-17 victory for New Orleans, who's not a good football team, who is really struggling. But it's kind of like, you know, if I had to bet money, I would just basically go throw money into a fireplace right now because I can't
light it up.
Single thing that this team is going to do. What did you guys all say last night?
Well, we had some of the patrons on, so they were, most of them were lunatics and picking Bears wins. Some of them were picking Bears big. I think Richard Gordon was sane, and I see him in the chat and picked them to get punched in the face like I did. I think I picked like 33-16 or 34-16 Saints win, or it might have even been worse than that. I know Phil was even more lopsided than I was. They're there. We're at that point in the season where I don't think the things are going to get better. Cars, we've been around this long enough. When your coach is coming out and saying how awesome your culture is, that's just admitting guilt. If you have a strong culture, if you have an awesome setup like he says, you don't even have to talk about it because everybody feels it, everybody sees it, and they just don't. I mean, for Christ's sake, 2 coaches are launched within 6 weeks. So that's where we're at.
What I call it the social media output, right? Like the unhappiest marriages I know are the ones that post the most lovey-dovey photos of each other and talk about their magical friendship, and then you see them like behind closed doors and they're all this MFer over here is useless behind, like, to your point, if Kansas City doesn't talk about culture, right? All throughout New England, they didn't talk about culture. The 49ers don't talk about culture. Philadelphia doesn't talk about culture. The only ones that do, and I think it's doubly worse for all of us because of the old Ted Phillips, our culture is the envy of the league. Have we gotten the quarterback position right? No. Have we won enough games? No. But our culture is the envy of the league.
Well, don't you think that could be taken 2 ways, though? That the culture, if you're a coach or a GM, you're going to get your, 4 years, 5 years of being inept and getting paid for it, and then have your job. Or in Ted's case, what was it, 20, 30 years?
20, was it 99 he took over? 23 years, basically. I mean, you're right. It kept him employed, and it's another one of those things where everybody kept saying we had the boogeyman, but we're in a situation right now where, because of Ted Phillips and the McCaskey family's incompetence, they allowed Trace Armstrong to seemingly negotiate a general manager and head coach forced marriage. And in the end, we always would hear, hey, he doesn't, the wins and losses aren't in him. He doesn't, not saying who to trade. No, he's just making every decision about who gets traded, or like who's going to make the decision.
We've gotten most decisions right, just not at quarterback. Remember that
and
one?
we don't win enough, right? Like, what the hell does that even mean? And as depressing as it gets, if we all remember that during the Ted Phillips years, I think we are 214 wins, 258 losses. Since the Super Bowl, we're 110 wins and 138 losses.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand the people are saying that, you got to give Eberflus more time. We haven't
gotten better.
We've seen enough of this. You have major flaws within your structure. Let's just remove the games from what's in front of us. You have major issues inside Hallis Hall with people that you brought there.
It's
that in and of itself, Cars. I brought this up last night. Now, I would be interested to hear what you say. If you're in a courtroom setting and you bring Matt Eberflus up to the stand and say, you have 15 minutes to tell me why you should keep your job. What are your top 3 arguments? I'm under contract for 5 years, 4 years. I mean,
the one thing I can actually say that has been good is positionally the way that players have developed. The head coach doesn't get, because that's a positional coach thing. Like if you
Right.
look at the way that Braxton Jones has come along, I think Chris Morgan doesn't get enough kudos for what he's done with that line this year and the way that they've shuffled. And you look at the way that Kyler Gordon has come around, Brisker has not. Dexter's picked up, Pickens has picked up. But that's not a head coach thing. That's a positional coach thing. And that to me is the only thing that you could say of value is where Kyler Gordon started and where he is night and day. Where Tyreek Stevenson has started, he got some of the worst calls I've seen. He's been a better player. Where Terrell Smith was, what you're seeing out of Darnell Wright. Some of these guys have developed, but it's definitely not enough to keep it, because your other choice is really, hey, I'm here for 2 years. Do you really want to pay me, and another coach X amount of dollars for that reason?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That would be my answer to him.
I mean, if the Raiders can pay $120 million basically over the next, I think it's 6 years between Gruden and McDaniels, $120 million to coaches, because those deals are actually guaranteed.
Right.
And we're going to sit down and freak out about most likely $5-ish million for 2 more years for Matt Eberflus.
Right.
Like it in no way, shape or form. There's nothing you could tell me that they do extremely well on the football field that warrants them having more time.
No, and couldn't you tell yesterday, Cars, just listening to Eberflus up there? I mean, he was the eye contact was very limited. He's reading a prepared statement because he fucked up before with it. And to me, he was very, very nervous. I said the same thing about Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles paused when they asked him specifically about why Matt Eberflus is the right man for the job. He had that pause for like a second and a half. And it was like him looking at his buddy and saying, "Buddy, I love you, but I'm gonna." It's like they know that he's gone, but he just doesn't want to shit on him.
You can't say it. Like, one of the things that we always get lost in is this whole idea that, like, just say the truth. None of these teams are going to do that. No coach is going to say, no general manager is going to say, I mean, yeah, we're firing this guy at the end of the season. And, I'm still going to be super shocked if he makes it throughout the whole season, to be honest. I'm now staring at that bye week going, is that when it's finally going to be the time? But, you pause because you don't have, the only reason you pause when you're asked that question is 2 reasons. 1, you don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
Or 2, you weren't prepared to be asked that question. There's no way that he wasn't prepared to be asked that question. And that even prepared, he didn't have a glowing answer. I think it tells you everything you need to know. And for everyone that sits down and says, he's coming back because you don't go and trade for a defensive end if he's not going to come back. And if you listen to the comments, I think it's ridiculous. It doesn't read anything. And I think it's going to be this buildup of, if you go 5-12, how can you justify sitting down and saying, hey, we've been 8 and 26 over the last 2 years, but just because our schedule, which by the way gets significantly easier the rest of the way, afforded us some wins because Kirk Cousins blew out his Achilles, and we're going to face Arizona, Carolina, and what looks to be a completely lost Green Bay team. Are you going to hang your hat on that? We did that with Nagy.
No, I get it. Yeah, and
but you can't.
that's the thing, and we know the quarterbacks that Matt Eberflus head coach team has beaten. But then you look at the two teams that we've beaten this year. Vegas just launched everybody, and Washington, they're gone. They're just not gone yet. They're going to be here till the end of the year, and then that entire staff is gone.
Well, and you give the Washington new ownership credit because what they've done is really reloaded on draft picks so that the next general manager and head coach that come in have a bevy of things to do, because overall that roster is barren. Even if, I love Terry McLaurin and the defensive tackles are nice, even though, you're not getting anything out of Deron Payne right now, and Jonathan Allen isn't the same kind of guy. That roster's really barren. So the way Vegas is significantly worse. For as great as Max Crosby is, there's 4 players under the age of 25 that are impact people on that roster. It's about the same or less in Washington. You can't do it. The most Bears thing to do, and this will probably upset people, is to bring back Matt Eberflus. Maybe you make him hire a defensive coordinator. You have to make him fire an offensive coordinator and hire somebody new. But isn't the most Bears thing you could think of is run it back with Justin Fields and just say 1 more year, let's see what we can do?
Yeah, I mean, the organization is so inept, Cars, you can't dismiss anything. My biggest overall fear is they move on from Justin, they get the first pick in the draft, they draft Caleb Williams, and this coaching staff is still here.
Even if they get rid of Luke Getsy and they hire a new offensive coordinator.
It's makeup on a pig. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's the coaching staff. Do you remember? I'm 47, so I've been a Bears fan a long time. Do you remember 2 HR violations within a coaching staff over even 1 season or 2?
I don't even remember 1 from a coaching staff.
It's just
in my life. I don't remember another one. And the worst we had was, what was the guy we signed from San Francisco, McDonald?
Yeah.
Like, that was the worst kind of move that we've seen in our life. No, you've never seen that. And someone was like, tried to go to the defense of like, hey, maybe this means that they're now taking this more seriously and they just didn't before. And I just don't think that's the case. Lovey hired a really inexperienced staff his first time. I think we always sort of roll past that, how bad that first staff was. And then he replaced people over time and it got better.
Right.
This staff is just as inexperienced overall. And God, I don't think he deserves that chance whatsoever.
He does not. Just so Jake, thank you for participating in the super chat. So what's the difference between us right now and Detroit last year? Is competence. I know they started out slow. They were in every game.
Well, I would say that from a roster construction perspective, not a whole lot, right? When Brad Holmes took over, the roster was barren. They didn't have a lot of picks, and he turned that over, much like Poles did. And I kind of said a couple different times on Twitter, I think Poles' biggest mistake is that he underestimated just how much of an overhaul, because this year we're still kind of tearing down the studs. But at some point last year, actually, I could tell you when it was, because we were at the Bears-Lions game when all of the talk had been, God, you got to get rid of Dan Campbell, because what does this Lions team do that they're good at right now? And the answer was nothing. But then they beat the Bears. They came back and they started to win. And Ben Johnson took off and their defense got better. And that saved them. Dan Campbell was under a 6-year contract when they did it, so he had more time and they were going to be patient. I think the difference here is up to this point, we've seen no improvement. The offensive play calling week in, week out, as we've highlighted on the show, and the whole reason that we're not doing it again this week is how many more times can I show you the same information? It's been vetted. You run play action, you go heavier, you pass out of your heavier sets, you use the talent that you have, you score points. When you call mostly 11 and no play action and all these things that he did against last week, you lose. And you can't keep going through the same motion. Detroit was trying to define an identity with the talent that they had. Chicago is trying to make the talent fit the identity that the offensive coordinator wants. And that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I'll throw this one up here, and I can address it. On to some funny stuff. I think you guys should use DJ Khaled's in future of songs. I got the keys as an intro. Yeah, that's definitely not going to be happening. That would be copyright infringement, and you would have to up your super chat in a big way for us to pay those fines, because we would get shut down in about 35
The show
seconds.
wouldn't even get this while the show is being uploaded for playback. It would get flagged instantly.
Yeah.
Ironically, their AI is that good.
And I think Cool Kennedy's Cars Keys song is dope as hell. I think it's one of the best ones we got going.
As the egomaniac that I am, we roll up to school listening to that pretty much every Friday after the show.
Absolutely. All right, before we kick things off, we got another one in there from our buddy Bill Wagner, Cars Keys, where Cars and Shane explore the multiverse for the darkest Bears timelines. Bears really should be better, but it can always be worse. You're damn right. And we have seen worse, unfortunately, in our Bears tenure, but I have not heard one valid reason from somebody saying why this coaching staff deserves more time. There's way more negatives that simply shouldn't be happening. Like I said,
you're a more talented team than you have been the last 3 years, right? Like, you're more talented than you were last year. You're more talented than you were in Nagy's last year. And you're younger, right? So you are an ascending team instead of this old team. And you're worse. Minimally, if you could tell me one thing that we do well, because even last year we ran the ball really well last year. We're not doing it the same way this year. So we've even regressed in the one thing that you could say last year we did well. You can't get worse, and we got worse.
Yeah. Just real quick. He is not taking number 90.
He's getting the old Tyrone Keys 98.
Number 98. Yeah, he was out on the practice field today sporting that 98. So, So D-Rob didn't make extra. He didn't get paid twice in one season for his,
which is good, because he's, for half a sack, that guy shouldn't get paid for shit.
Let's dive into it, though. What do we got?
All right. So you're going to get death by PowerPoint, which is ironic because that has been my last 2 days at work. But instead of doing a little bit of a repeat, the idea for this show today is to kind of do what you would think is a mid-season review. So one thing you should know about most teams is they'll do quarter season, half season, 3/4 season reviews of where they are. And so what it'll be kind of some of the things of and I'll start by showing kind of this. So you want to start off with taking a snapshot of where you are the last 2 years. You don't go back further than that with this franchise or this front office, because they've only been here for 2 years. So you talk about where you've improved, where you regressed. You talk about your hits and misses. And I'm not covering the hits and misses because, I think that's well documented. I think the next part that you start to do is you start to review your roster with the guys under contract next year. So you define upgradable positions. You start to look at deeper positions in the draft where you're weaker. You start trying to do some lineups of where those things meet. Review your key home free agents. This is going to be a part, along with the previous one, where everyone's going to freak out. I'm just telling you, we're just going to deal with it as it is right now. I don't expect it to be this way, but this is the way that the team will view it. We'll talk about potential FAs in position of need. So again, the reason that you do this at the quarter year, the reason that you do this at the half year and 3/4 of the year is you see who is re-signed and who's not, right? So a move like Billings re-signing on our side, that's a great thing. How does Rashawn Gary's contract extension, what does that mean? So you'll talk through that. And then kind of at the end, you'll review a little bit more of and let's actually mix throughout all of this. You'll talk about your draft picks, which ones you have, and the potential to maybe add additional, whether that is going to be from compensatory picks, which, they're not going to probably end up with again this year because of how crazy they were in FA. Ian Cunningham didn't get hired, so there's not going to be any compensatory talk.
Right.
But it's, again, good front offices do these check-ins. They self-scout. They start to identify where they're good, where they're bad, where their blind spots are, etc. And so that's kind of the idea of today is starting to walk you through a little bit of that review.
So do you want to burst Chubb's bubble? He wants us to tell him that we're going to win Sunday. Yeah, we're both in the other camp. Chubbs, unfortunately.
I mean, the hard part is that offense for New Orleans is not good. When you're talking, your starting quarterback 8 games in has 8 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And you're 4-4 with a top 5 defense. It's not a good start, but anytime you sit down and you look at, you're at home in the dome with an undrafted quarterback, undrafted free agent quarterback in his second start in the NFL, or third start in the NFL, I feel like it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be betting any money on Chicago. What's the spreads? What, 8.5?
Yeah, save your money for hand grenades and everything else that you're doing down on Bourbon Street for sure. So with that, let's dive in. So you first got to be honest with yourself, as a 25 game review. When you look here on the right hand side, where you have regressed, I think it's stuff we've all talked about. The team play is sloppy. We're now one of the more penalized teams in the NFL this season. That actually got worse from year to year. Your defense is bottom 10% in scoring defense the last 2 years. Your offense is now both better and worse. We are 17th in scoring from 23rd and 27th. But again, name something that we're good at. If what we're good at is not figuring out more ways to get DJ Moore the ball, that is a big problem. Your pass rush is bottom 10%. Now, obviously, the sweat move impacts that, but it is not good. And I think, depending on which way you either look at it, Justin Fields' development has either stalled or completely died out. I think, there's obviously going to be more into that, but I think that's a really good start of just like what is bad. You'll notice that what is bad is all on the coaching shoulders. Now let's look at where you've made improvements. In 21, so the team that Ryan Pace left us with was the second oldest team in football that year. And we were expensively old. So we were over 27 years, almost 28 years of average age on that roster. 2 years later, you are the 14th youngest. And, heading and trending even into a younger franchise. You've turned over 43 of the 53 roster positions in 2 years. And most of these positions have been young draft picks. Again, we went from the first 2 years of Ryan Poles has had 21 draft picks when we had the last 3 with Ryan Pace had 19 in total. There's been a larger focus on draft, on building the right way. And I think lastly, your offensive line has been much improved. I'm excited, and I still will be, Shane, for when Braxton Jones gets healthy and we're starting Braxton, Tevin, Patrick, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright across. I think that's a really good line. Obviously, Larry Borum had another bad week, and he's kind of the player. He has, much like the team, he has these peaks and valleys in his
Right, and
play.
now out for a couple of days with personal issues. I believe is not what they said on the
Yes, he's out for a
report
few.
today. But
So when you look at that, and Shane, is there anything you'd like to add as like good and bad? I think that
no, it's unfortunately, we're just I feel like I just be repeating myself because it's the same thing. It's something so ridiculously simple, and they cannot seem to sustain it when they have the personnel to sustain it. They should be doing for Justin Fields what they're doing for Tyson Bagent. It should be the same.
Yeah.
And it's just not. We told everybody from day one, Khalil Herbert should have stayed in the same role. Deontay Foreman should be getting the ball, getting it again, and getting it again. And he came off a 3-touchdown game, and he got 9 carries the next week.
Oh, and if folks didn't see the advanced numbers of how good he is against both light and heavy boxes,
Yeah,
it's insane. But it just, so yeah, I think you're right, and and part of the reason I wanted to do it at more higher level is just that we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Sadly, the entire Flus time, and nothing has changed, especially on the offensive side. It got better defensively for a while when we got aggressive.
Yeah.
And then we built up all this confidence, and then we were like,
nope.
All right, we're going to take our foot off the accelerator because we've arrived.
But that's been the Bears forever. And I think, again, this is one of those things when Phil talks about maniacal, I think that plays into it. If the Bears come out like they did against Washington and they punch them in the fucking face in the first half, it's a complete blowout. Goddamn well coming out in the third quarter, it's going to be a completely stripped down, bare bones game plan that's just going to be the Bears defense holding on, trying not to let them score off of a 14-play drive. And it is what it – I just wish – listen, I understand if you have an aggressive defense where it's hard for you to even catch your breath when you're watching it on TV. That's why I get who was he was the head coach for the Lions, and then he was the defensive coordinator for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh,
who was there?
I could picture the guy, Schwartz.
Yeah, hated the dude, but I always respected the hell out of him as a defensive coordinator because he was relentless with the pressure all the time. It wasn't bend, don't break. We're going to play. We want to give you a 14 to 15 play drive because we're going to guarantee that within those 15 plays, you're going to screw up. Not that we're going to make you screw up with our aggressive nature. I'm not built that way. And I would just, if it's 3rd and 18 cars, do you have any fucking confidence that this defense is going to stop them?
No, and
there's none on 3rd and 18. And you have a defensive head football coach. That tells you everything right there. They've invested in the defense, and we can't get off the field on 3rd and 18.
Well, I think you use the best comp, though. If any game sums up basically the Lovey era on, it is that Denver Broncos game.
Mm-hmm.
You had an aggressive first half play,
Yep.
and it paid off. And so what did you do? You played not to lose the second half. You played conservatively. You on offense, you went from let's just not, let's be aggressive to let's not make a mistake. And on defense, you went from aggressive to let's hope they make a mistake. And that
Right.
game is our lives as Bears fans pretty much since Ditka left. That
No, I hear you.
aggressiveness went, and to your point, that's what we do. We we get a lead at halftime. We
Yeah.
are running the ball 15 times in a row,
Mm-hmm.
even if we've passed for 400 yards and a half, because we've got to maintain, and this is the way you do it. That died in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's not the way you do it. Look at Miami, look at Buffalo, look at San Francisco, look at Philly. Nobody takes their foot off the gas ever.
You've heard me talk about my family being Eagles fans, and I get so pissed off because you can just see it doesn't matter if Philly's on the road. It doesn't matter if it's 3rd and 21.
Yes.
There's confidence in swag with the coaching staff, with the players, because they know they're not taking their foot off the throttle. And that's the way players are nowadays. They want to have an attack mentality. They don't want to sit back and get repeatedly punched in the face and hope that you don't get knocked out.
But it's how I taught Maisie how to play goalie in soccer. You either sit back and wait for the ball to come for you, and that is how you
Right.
give up so many goals, or you go out and attack and you try to, don't
Yeah.
hope they make a mistake. She charges. If someone gets past the defense, she knows to charge
Yeah.
because they may make a mistake because they're expecting you to sit back.
Yeah.
3rd and 18, like you're right. What did Glovey do? And
Right.
every guy since.
Yeah.
We send 3 rushers, we drop everybody into quarters coverage,
Yeah.
and lo and behold, they run a screen because they've got 8 guys up
Right.
front right away, and it's a 19, 20, 60-yard touchdown in some instances off of that screen because of the fact that we stop charging.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And it's a mentality. That's the deep end is coming against the Bears on 3rd and long. And it's the same fucking play. It doesn't matter if you're playing Minnesota, doesn't matter if you're playing Jordan Love, giving up 3rd and friggin' 20s to Jordan Love.
Who cannot throw deep.
Right. He
To
can
save
against
his life.
Chicago. He can against Chicago. But yeah, they have to. You listen, when you say that competition breeds success, it's just like in any sport. If the defense goes out and makes a big play and has a big sack, that momentum, if you're worth anything as a football coach, should spill over to the other side of the ball. And they're the fucking team that will get the fucking momentum and they'll run a fucking draw play on 3rd and 7.
Well, you've been arguing this for years, and I mean this because you're correct. You get a turnover,
Attack.
go fucking deep,
Right.
attack, and guess what? We won't.
No.
The one time we did was Tressman's first year because he was like, "We've got weapons.
They do.
We just don't want to use it," and it is mind blowing to me just how we keep going to the same guys, no matter who it is. If it's Wani, Jaron, Lovey, Tressman, Nagy, Fox, now Flus, everybody, it is get a lead,
Right.
shit down your leg, and
All
go
of them,
ultra
Tarzan,
conservative.
they talk about, oh, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to stay aggressive. Now, I always had to laugh at Matt Nagy when he said that. How many times when it was time to go for it, you better fucking know before you get to 4th and 1 and 4th and 2 that you're going to go. You should know that. How many times did we see Matt Nagy get to that? There was a fucking pause. They'd run another 10 seconds off the clock. He'd call a timeout, come out. They'd go out there for a 4th and 1 play, and get stuffed or get
Or
called for a false start.
the ultimate Matt Nagy. Go to a 4th and 1, they'd call timeout and they'd get a delay of game penalty because he
exactly.
couldn't figure out how to get a play in off of a timeout. Like,
Yeah,
this is it's it strikes a nerve. I mean, it is there's never been aggressiveness. There has, even to this day, you know, we talk about 85 Bears all the time.
right.
Guess what? They were aggressive because they knew that defense was going to go get that ball. What did
Damn
Buddy
right.
Ryan always say? If we couldn't generate pressure with 4, I don't care if I have to send 8. I'm sending 8 because I'm
Damn
not going to
right.
let you sit there and pick us apart.
Exactly.
And I get that the 46 is not a thing anymore, but to your
you can
point,
still be aggressive.
you
Yeah.
can. Cincinnati does not have a super talented defense. They are crazy aggressive when it comes down. It's why I love that defensive coordinator, because he's like, I'll send everybody. I'll send in a towel boy if I can get away with it. And
Bobby
us will
Boucher,
like,
get in there.
yeah. And us will be like, we got, you know what? We're gonna send 4, but it's not the 4 you're thinking of. So this
right.
is smart.
Oh, you're
Like, oh,
you watch
God.
this. Oh, it's 3rd and 13. Yeah. Drop 12 yards off. You know, it drives me.
We're gonna drop our 4 defensive linemen into coverage, but we're gonna blitz 3 linebackers. Let's go.
Great.
Oh, it's a
Real quick, Dan, NFL Shop. This is the breast cancer awareness hat that you can buy for the Bears. I mean, every team has them, but it has the color under the brim. But it's that's where you get it, my man.
In Corn Planter, by the way, it makes me laugh every time. Here, let me do it again. Because one, I just love the name, but I think Flores is a great example. That's a non-talented defense. Outside of Hunter, they've missed so many of those picks, right? He blitzed us 71% of the time.
Yeah.
71%. That's an insane number. And for us, we're like, ooh, we did 40 this week. 40. We got to drop it back down to 20 next week, but we did 40.
And the thing about it is, they knew that was coming, Cars. They knew that was coming, and they did 0. 0.
Oh,
it's just, and like, listen, I'm not going to defend Justin's decision. That's when he got hurt. That was on Justin Fields when he got hurt. The 6.8, 6.9 seconds, all of that. Get rid of the ball, rip it to DJ, live to fight another down. But where it's not on Justin is the fucking game plan.
But I think that's I think when you look back at the ugly, you've either stalled his development or you've killed him. Are we in this David Carr scenario where he's gotten hit so much and it's gotten in his head? Is this the Tim Couch scenario where these really talented guys who knows if they'd make it, but they were never given the proper chance, and by the time that they finally did,
maybe I'm 100% wrong, but when I look at Justin Fields, I don't think the hits are in his head. I think what's in his head, Cars, and I look back to this. You remember they used to talk about this with Jay Cutler, that you needed somebody that could push Jay mentally. You know what I mean? That could beat up. I think Justin is so beat down, but I think he's beat down from the process within Hallis Hall. Like, here I am in the NFL, and these motherfuckers, this is the game plan they're coming up with. And he knows that it's shit.
I mean, there were a few games that
I think that just kills your morale. I think he's headstrong enough. I think he gets it. And I feel, listen, he's got his warts on the field. We understand that. But I just think that there is no faith in these offensive game plans from Luke Getsy that Matt Eberflus is signing off on, that Justin Fields is just like, what? How the fuck am I in year 3? And this is the shit that is still happening. And that's organizational failure.
And I think that's, but again, I think that's part of why you really have to look at moving on from him, because at this point, he's going to have zero trust within the franchise. He is not developed. We talked about it last week and how slow his dropbacks are. And you look at how much better pressure rating is when he's not on the field.
Yeah.
Those things do matter, by the way. But at some point, you can't just say like because I don't think you're wrong. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to excuse.
No,
I
no,
think you
that's
have
fine.
a very good point. And I think there's this ownership portion of him, and it becomes this game of, is he truly working on it or is he not? Because he's like, these idiots are going to get me killed. I mean, we know he's doing some of these work, but it is inexcusable at this point in his pro career that his drop back is as slow and painful as it is. It does influence a lot of these shotgun runs or shotgun plays. We have to call it like it is. But at the same point,
Right.
yeah, what was the game that we knew we were going to lose because he's like looking at the game plan and he's like, oh man, screw this. It is.
Yeah.
We have no shot. No shot.
Yeah, and I'm not Nick, that's the throwing motion. We've been over that here. I mean, we've had quarterback coaches on that do this professionally. His motion is what it is. Is it great? No. He's got the Carson Wentz elbow, but it's also what got him to this level. And
But it
once you-
is slow. I think we talked
Oh,
about this
no, no.
last week.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
slow,
it
and when
is.
you compound that with a slow
Yeah.
drop pick, it does. Nicholas is right to a degree.
Yeah,
If his drop back was faster,
well, that's where that's where it starts. And again, I brought up Jay Cutler. Cars, you go back, they get lazy where they shouldn't be lazy. They're getting lazy in their drop back. I can go back to tape watching Jay Cutler where he wouldn't even carry the handoff, the fake handoff he just wouldn't even sell it at all. And
he
I'm
didn't
like,
care
no,
to. Yeah.
those are the details that matter. Go watch Philly play. Go watch what Jalen Hurts does. And it's every single time. You can just watch it live on TV and you're like, oh shit. Oh, all right. Yep. Okay. Yeah, there it is.
Purdy does it extremely
does,
well. Yeah, you're right. Like, whereas Mahomes really doesn't, because he's Mahomes. Burrow does a tremendous job on play action and selling it. There's so much mechanically that has not improved with Justin Fields in year 3. That's the concern, and so much of that has to be on the staff of not hammering it home.
Totally agree.
So, for those of you that are old like me that remember the band Europe and the Final Countdown, so one of the things they'll do is they'll sit in a room and talk, what do we need to see the last 9 games, right? So development at the QB position. Can Fields be the guy? If not, what is Bagent? Not meaning is he a bona fide starter, but truly, who is he as a player? I think we're getting into this portion of whether they believe in Fields or not. I think it's if they believed in him, I think they'd be rushing him back a little faster, and I thought he would be playing this game. I'm concerned. What is the offensive line when healthy? Last week was a fallback week a little bit there. The vast majority of that kind of fell on the Larry Borum, Cody Whitehair part of the line. So what does that look like? The defensive line and the pass rush. So now that you've got these two together, what does that do for Dexter and Pickens and their growth? How does that start to take some pressure off of these guys who we were asking Justin Jones to be better than what he is. So how does that look? Better use of the skill position. Is Mooney worth keeping on the roster? At this point, the answer is no. And is that because of how he is, or is this because of use case? Where is Tyler Scott? What are you doing with Cole Kmet, whose usage is one of the most head-scratching things that I can think of in this team? You got to see more growth in the secondary, right? So we saw Kyler make this jump last year. Tyreek is making a minimal one. I think that one of the questions that has to be answered is Terrell Smith a Jalen replacement? I think that factors in a little bit. And so you also have to
Right.
wonder what his value is to the team. 6 out of these 9 games are extremely winnable games. You've got 2 against Detroit that are not winnable. There's a third game I can't remember off the top of my head right now because I just don't even care to. I don't know if it's who the other team is, but there's one other game that doesn't look winnable. But you've got Minnesota, Green Bay, Carolina, Arizona. This game against New Orleans is a very winnable game as well. So you've
Right.
got 6 games. What do you do? If you go 3-6, who are your 3 wins? And you really at this moving forward, you really want to see the development of the draft picks be those players that move us. As much as you want Montez Sweat to move that, you want it to be Montez Sweat plus Dexter
Absolutely.
plus those others.
We talked about this last night, Cars, and you're going to know as soon the Bears, let's say draft day come, we're going to know our draft slotting
Oh yeah.
as soon as the season is, officially, the regular season is officially over. The Bears are sitting at number 3. You think that they're going to invest money into Darnell Mooney?
No.
No, they're not.
No, and it's yeah.
You're
And
not
what has he
gonna,
showed you this year that he is
not that he's not. And listen, it just is what it is. But you have to look at it from a business sense. Is Darnell a great guy? Yes. Is he a good player? Can he be explosive? Is he overall? Of course, he's not going to be consistent. There's nothing around him other than DJ Moore that's consistent. They're not going to pay 13, 14, 15 million dollars to who would be a number 3 wide receiver in this offense. Because if you're
no.
at number 3, guess who they're going to draft? Cars, you know, just like I do. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a Bear, and you would move forward with DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison. They're not going
You're
to
gonna
pay.
When the second team is on the clock, the Bears are going to be standing right next to the podium. So the second that Drake May's card is turned in,
Yeah.
the Bears going, oh, by the way, just take this one. We're done. Right? Like
Yeah.
that's how quick it is a no-brainer decision.
Yeah, you
You're
can't.
right.
You can't, because the separator, you already brought the guy's name up, is you're expecting Tyler Scott, who is a 5th-round draft pick, under cost control for the next 3 years after this season. You're not going to pay Darnell Mooney.
No.
You're
I-
just
that
not, you're
that ship
not
has
going
sailed.
to.
That ship has sailed at this point, and I think the Washington game is a prime example. That first play where he turned all sorts of wrong ways. And again, there's belief that it was the Chase Claypool trade and forcing him down everybody's throat that destroyed, his comeback. And I think there's some validity to that. But at the
Right.
same point, no, you're not. And if you look again at free agency, T. Higgins, if let's say you don't get him, Marvin Harrison, you're picking 5th for whatever reason.
Right.
Guess what? You're gonna go pay T. Higgins before you're gonna pay Mooney.
Oh,
Like
they
that's
wouldn't. Yeah.
the
No, I
way
hear
that
you.
it's going to be.
No, I hear you. And it's nothing against Darnell, the person. Darnell, situations and timing are absolutely everything.
Yeah,
If Darnell Mooney would have not got injured and had a big year last year, he would have got paid.
absolutely,
Not-
absolutely.
And it's
And
it's
and
not happening.
And I'm just throwing this up there. That's not what I am saying. I'm not there yet either, but these are things that they have to figure out. And we're going to talk about his contract here in a little bit. That's going to be one of the next kind of things here after this couple. But
And they may not even be. You heard the general manager yesterday say why he wanted a late 1, early 2 for Jalen Johnson, because he was going to have to go out and find another Jalen Johnson.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
listen, you have to have a lot of corners in today's NFL, and to their credit, that seems to be the position that they've really evaluated the best overall, I would say, is in the secondary.
You do have to give him credit because I think Tyreek has really played. Kyler's come along. What you've gotten out of Terrell Smith was a guy who I didn't have the most hope for. Not that I thought he was, but the impact he made while he was healthy,
Yeah.
not having mono, you do have to give them a lot of credit.
Right,
The
right.
biggest miss so far seems to be Brisker, who is the ultimate high or low
Yep.
kind of person.
Yeah, and listen, Jaquan's talent is fun, but he gets fucking overhyped
And
to
misses.
such a degree. It's
Jamal Adams to me all over
Yeah.
again, which is one of those when
without
healthy.
without the high draft slot. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those guys when healthy, super talented, but that when healthy thing flags a lot. So one of the next things you're going to start to do, and don't worry about the names on the left, right? It doesn't really matter. But one of the things you do is you're going to look at how the roster is construed for next year. So right now you are 36 players under contract. You are the youngest average roster age across everybody in the NFL as it sits, 25 years. You have 90 million in cap space. But I'm putting these two up there because I absolutely believe that both Eddie and Whitehair are gone because the cost savings is so tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
This is your this is
they're
your
gone.
Montez. Yeah, this is your
This is the
Montez money.
contract. Yeah.
Yeah, this is your
exactly.
Montez money. But there's two things that doing those moves do. One, it gives you 111 million in free agency, which will again go down to 90-ish, and we'll talk about Sweat Steel in a second. That leaves you with two players on this active roster that are 30 or older, and that is Cairo Santos and DeMarcus Walker. And when you look at what's coming in, there's 6 picks this year. So it is a little bit lower because we've got 2 1s. We don't have a 2. We've got a 3. We've got 2 4s and a 5.
But you trade one of those ones and you can
You're
cooking with gas again. You know what I mean? Numbers wise on picks.
Well, I think the way to look at this is outside of the top 5, you're moving down because there's not really a player. As much as I love Olu, if like you're drafting 9 or 10, Olu's not going to be there. You're looking at Alt and some of these other guys. They're decent, but you're going to move and recoup those picks. There's a lot to play there. If you're 1 and 3, you're not moving, right? You're doing Caleb, you're doing Marvin Harrison Jr., and you're moving on. And so there is an ability, but this is again where Jalen and his uncertainty comes in. Like obviously they can't trade him because he's not within a contract, but these are the moves that they have to look and figure out.
I hear you, man. And like I said, it's if they're up high, like I said, they almost got 2023 first rounder from Houston in that potential deal from dropping from number 1 to number 2. Wasn't that the deal?
Yeah. So if the Bears are number 2,
yeah,
and it's Drake May, that sort of deal is still on the table. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. If you're at 2 and Arizona or a quarterback needy team, whoever, let's name it, is at 4, yeah, you're plopping out the neon for sale sign, and
the second the draft is set, that's it. If you're like we're second, that sign is lit up in as bright of colors as you can imagine.
Yeah, and I've said it. I'm not on the Drake May. If they're drafted number 1, they will take Caleb. If they're drafted number 2, I don't think myself. I'm not replacing Justin Fields with Drake May. That's where I'm at.
I'm in the same. I have a lot of concerns with how long he holds the ball, kind of that offensive play style. I think he's overrated because of the division of football that he plays in as well.
Yeah, just Joe Jades, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce your name. He Oh, you're talking about. All right, I read that wrong. I was thinking of you're talking about I didn't see the Ohio State when I looked down. I just saw it wrong. I thought you were talking about the quarterback from Michigan. But into the second, yeah, I mean we're gonna get into all of this, but he's gonna go higher than you think.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So this is where I expect some freakouts, and so just sit down and relax, okay? But the next slide is really these are the under contract starters, okay, for next year. And so all teams will do this where they will
repeat that. Under contract.
Under contract. So you'll notice there's no Jalen. He's not under contract. There is no Montez Sweat. He is not under contract. Teams will then color code these things. I did this briefly as just part of an exercise. Green means you are happy with the player and you're not going to potentially make an upgrade. Orange means that for various reasons, this is an upgradable position. I'm going to highlight Tevin Jenkins because everyone's going to freak out. It's why I put medical only. The biggest hurdle for Tevin, and I know Shane was joking that, I expect Tevin some point to end up injured here again this season. Tevin Jenkins, the biggest concern with him is injury.
And it's been that way every year.
It should be right at this point. And so when you look at this is again of the 36 players under contract for next year. This is the way that we would start if we signed and drafted nobody additional. And so you look at this and you kind of go, okay, like Khalil Herbert is a nice player. To Shane's point, Foreman is not under contract. I would rather have Foreman starting in this position than I would Khalil Herbert. So you've got Justin. I think this is just, again, kind of that earlier conversation. Tyler Scott, I think is an up and coming, but we have to look. Yeah, Velus Jones is listed as a starter right now because we only have 3 wide receivers under contract next year. So if you want to look at that and how that looks.
Right.
So when you look at kind of where you are, Dexter Jr., I have in orange because we need to see where he is at the end of the season to see if he's really escalated to kind of that 3 technique. The team is going to do this and compare against, cap. We're going to then look at our own free agents. We're going to look at draft, and they're going to start to do some predicting because boards are already being built and have been since week 1 of the college football season. So this list will constantly change. If Jalen goes out with an injury and Terrell isn't, and they finally come to terms with Jalen on a contract and he moves back in. These are living and breathing sheets. These are no longer, this is it and this is what it is going forward. These things change.
Yeah.
Totally. So, yeah.
Oh man.
So here's where it gets interesting.
A little sobering when you see it in print. Go ahead.
Isn't it though? And guys like, Dan Sharp asked about Pickens. Pickens is a depth guy at this point. We'll see. So then you're going to start going over your list of free agents that you have. So what I did here is really working on some ideas of contract numbers. And to be candid, I understand where the issue is with Jalen's contract, and you'll see we'll rehash it a little bit over here. But look at the deals of what you expect. So if you're looking at around Montez Sweat, which Rashawn Gary is going to be the 5th highest paid pass rusher next year. He's going to be making more money than Max Crosby. That feels really out of place to me. But he also had a horribly low guaranteed number. So I don't really use his because I would expect Sweat's guarantee to be higher. Gary is a better pass rusher, but he is a significantly worse run defender. Sweat is more all around. And so I think if you look at kind of somewhere in between that Trey Hendrickson deal and that Draymond Jones deal, so between 17 and 21 makes a lot of sense. But because they traded a second round pick here, I think that gets inflated a little bit, especially out of devastation.
100%.
Yeah.
And they're gonna the agent and the player both know that. I know everybody was like, oh, well, he said that he wants to sit down and really think about, his situation. No, that's the art of negotiating. You're not giving anything up, especially when you're speaking publicly. A deal is going to get done in Chicago cars, and it's the Bears are going to have to overpay. You're overpaying because you traded for him, and you're saying we want to keep you off of the open market. And that's you're overpaying for that, for the right to do that.
And we have to lose this idea. One of my biggest complaints about everybody talking about this deal was going to be like, you could have gotten him in free agency. No. Guess what, guys? Atlanta was going to get him if we didn't. Mm-hmm. He was not hitting free agency. Okay, so this whole idea is you didn't need to spend a second. You would have gotten him in. You could have gotten him in free agency. No, he thought he was going to Atlanta. It was that type of move.
And let's just say he made it to free agency. Let's just say it got crazy and he made it to free agency. There's teams with a lot of money available.
There are 10 teams north of $50 million.
And it can get stupid.
Look what happened with McGlinchey.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, look at what happened with Draymond Jones. In no world is
McGlinchey no, but just stay on McGlinchey real quick, Cars, because you look at the setup had the Bears got to deal with McGlinchey. I think about that daily.
Oh, it's a nightmare scenario.
It is. And that's a big, fat red mark against Ryan Poles.
Maybe. I know you got to kick the tires. It does feel more like the Bears had set a value on him.
Oh yeah, I know, but they were.
I know. I get they were in negotiations, and he's played so poorly.
And you can go back to the center from the Rams was, another one.
Yeah.
And it's a concern for me.
It absolutely is. And so when we sit down and look at Jalen's deal, I'll expect somewhere between a 4-year between 52 and 60 million. And you see the names underneath. I'm not going to talk about the other guys because they can all come and go. But those are the deals. And when you look at comparisons, this is, again, going to sort of be an eye chart. I think the reason that Jalen is not happy, and he keeps saying he doesn't want to reset the market, and I apologize, this is way smaller of an eye chart that I can make it. But if you look at the top 15 guys, you've got your Jair, Denzel Ward, Marshawn Lattimore, Marlon Humphrey, Trayvon Diggs, Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, Tre'Davious White, J.C. Jackson, and Carlton Davis is your first 10. What's interesting about this list is that Jalen has 3 interceptions in his career. The only guy that has that few or less is Adoree Jackson of the Giants, who's making $13 million a year. The next closest guy on interceptions is Jameel Dean, and who is making at that $14 million, and he has 6 interceptions over his career. The rest of these names have significantly more interceptions, and it's not even just interceptions. Passes defended is another declining number for Jalen Johnson year over year. It's not just that he's not even getting turnovers, he's not getting his hands on as many passes. I understand that they're going more to some of those guys, But we keep talking about that Philadelphia game,
Right.
and A.J. Brown still went house on him no matter how good he played. This is a turnover big play highlight. Everybody talks about, Trayvon Diggs and Trayvon. Trayvon has 15 interceptions over the
Yeah.
same period of time that Jalen has 3.
And 2 of them came against Brian Hoyer.
And yes. And Jalen has missed 25% of the available games to play. We just like when we heard about Chase Young, everyone's like, I can't believe we didn't get Chase Young. Look at San Francisco only had to give up a third. And then Cap said he failed 4 team physicals. 4 team physicals?
Yeah, 4 of them. Well, and then there's more coming out too that he's, he loves to freelance. He loves to go away from, what the play calls for and all of that. And listen, I was 100%. We don't have access to medicals. We knew that there was an issue there, but when you're at the point, and that's exactly why, guys, when you hear that the medicals are bad and where Cap is 100% right, all you have to do is he was available to 31 other teams, and they got a compensatory 3rd-round draft pick back for him. He's a rental. He's a 9-game rental for the Niners.
A desperation 9-game rental because that defense has fallen off so much because Bosa is not earning the money that he got paid. And that's going to have ramifications. San Francisco can't re-sign Chase Young. It is a 1-year deal. They're, with all the moves that they have, with everybody that they have to go ahead and re-sign, they have no chance at re-signing him. If I'm remembering correctly right now, they're already $13 million over the cap next year with 45 guys under contract.
Exactly. And I was going through, Bob was saying that, and I understand, Bob, I don't want to railroad Ryan Poles for the McGlinchey thing, but so I just looked up the numbers. So he signed a 5-year deal for $87.5 million. Ryan Poles didn't go there, but it was between Chicago and Denver for his services. I mean, so what did Poles go to? Did Poles say, hey, we'll go 5 for 70? That's still a massive L.
Yeah.
No matter what way you slice it. Because because I mean, what do they do? Then do they draft Darnell Wright and put him at left tackle?
Most likely.
So that would be it's
actually they wouldn't do that because they're still very high on Braxton. I think
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I guess I should have been clear with that. I don't think they draft Darnell Wright to play left tackle. And so you're removing part of the deal for getting McGlinchey is you losing Darnell Wright. And I mean, then where do they go?
And if I could, this is the wrong attitude. This is what gets you into trouble. This is what Denver went through and did Draymond Jones for 17 when other people were offering 12. They went McGlinchey above and beyond. It may not seem like a big deal to you because it's unreal number, but every $1 million over a player's value that you spend is someone else that you cannot add. Every time you pay a guy who is worth 15 and you pay him 20, that is $5 million that you don't have someone else to go through and sign. These things have ramifications. That is, you don't pay a guy worth more than what he's worth because
there's only one time that you do it. There's only one time that you do it.
Quarterback.
Well, quarterback, of course, but if you are a player away,
yes,
from the Super Bowl, that's where Phil's fuck a cap philosophy comes into play.
San Francisco did that with Hargrave this year, right?
When you're building, when you strip everything down, if you have a fuck a cap culture and philosophy, you've fucked your entire team up moving forward. Because at some point, those bills come due. And it's not sustainable. Fans don't like it because fans love big names. I always point to the Minnesota Vikings every single draft over the years. They usually get a lot of love because they draft big name players from big time schools. So the fair weather fan that really isn't into the draft process is like, oh, I've heard of him.
Yep.
I've heard of him. He's good. Oh, Minnesota had a great draft. And it's not like that. Free agency, same thing. Oh, look, here's NFL.com's top 50 free agents. They got 3 of them.
Washington did this every year
All
under
the time.
Daniel Snyder.
Oh, they signed Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders and somebody else.
Albert Hainsworth.
Yeah, in the same free agency class. You can't do it.
You cannot overpay. And so on the left-hand side, when you look at the edge rushers, right, it goes Bosa, TJ Watt, Bosa, Myles Garrett, Rashawn Gary, Max Crosby, Khalil Mack, Bradley Chubb. So we talked about a lot of those guys. Leonard Williams is also a really good comp for where Sweat should be, which is about $21-ish million. But when you overvalue a player and you overpay, if I've got a 57-man roster that is active week in, week out, I have 57 bodies. If I go out and pay a guy who should be 20 million and I paid him 25, guess what? That next tier of player I get has shrunk. And we all know injuries happen and you need to add depth. Jalen Johnson is a nice player. I don't ever want to sit down and say Jalen is not a good player. But he's not a difference maker as of right now. Yes, he had a great game against Vegas, picking off Hoyer and then Aiden O'Connell. Totally get it. But you went, his second year, he got his first interception, and he just got his second and third in game 7 of his third year.
And what else do we not have access to? The medical.
His medical.
And that is a big, big piece. So while you were talking, Cars, just to prove a point on when people say, oh, I don't care as long as they get the player, in free agency, I don't care what the contract is. So this is a list of the top available free agents for the 2020 season. So 3 years ago.
Oh, God.
Number 1, Amari Cooper. Number 2, Cam Newton. Number 3, Ryan Tannehill. Number 4, Byron Jones. Then there's number 6, Corey Littleton. I'm just going through. Jack Conklin, Anthony Costanzo, Chris Harris, Jameis Winston, Dante Fowler, DJ Reader, Devin McCourty, Jason Pierre-Paul, Austin Hooper, Von Bell, Melvin Gordon, Robbie.
Do you remember
Anderson.
that Austin Hooper deal?
Yes, yeah. Everson Griffith, James Bradbury, Robert Quinn. And that was the year the Bears signed Robert Quinn. The Bears, it says right
70.
here, 5 for 70, 30 million guaranteed. Emmanuel Sanders, Shelby Harris, Brian Bulaga, Jimmy Ward. This is the point. It's NFL free agency is 95% of the time a landmine that's going to explode in your face at some point. That's why you have to be very, very calculated. And this is what's going to play into Jalen's camp. This is what's going to be a positive for him, Cars, is like we talked about pre-show a little bit. He's 24 years old.
Yes.
People are going to see that. They're going to overlook a lot of the negatives and say, all right, he's a 24-year-old corner. Let's lock him up. Let's give him a 5-year deal. He'll be 29. When he gets back out on the market, that'll be appealing to Jalen Johnson. He's going to get paid. This is why you get the Montez Sweat deal done. You have the transition or franchise tag at your disposal. So there's a long way to go, but guys, you cannot build the team with fuck a cap. Fans love it because they love the big names. It literally fucks you.
And Eric, I'm just putting this up because you're right, it's not. That's why you have to evaluate Terrell Smith and his development, and what he's shown factors into whether or not you do. If the hardest part, we don't take anybody's amount of what they think both the Bears offered and what he wants. There is no answer to what that is. Okay? But if you look at that list, if he wants more money than Trayvon Diggs, are you paying him that? If he wants more money than Denzel Ward, who to me is the only true shutdown corner right now in that top 10 list. Sauce Gardner is going to be in that list in a few years. You don't pay those guys that money. And by the way, look at all those, if you look at that list, and I'm sorry that I don't have it up, but like, how many playoff games has Jair Alexander won? Denzel Ward. Jalen Ramsey finally won on a loaded defense. Cornerback is not a premier position still. And it's only premier if you are forcing turnovers and are a playmaker. Great coverage is extremely important. But if you're not flipping, if you're not causing havoc, if you're not getting interceptions, getting your hand on a lot of footballs, that's it.
Well,
I
that's
get
the thing.
his talent isn't easy.
Look
but
how much
yeah.
respect he got for the Philly game last year.
Yeah.
Jalen Johnson.
And gave up 11 for
182.
182.
You know what I mean? And listen, I said it that when the news broke that he was demanding a trade, Jalen Johnson is not an elite corner. I do not for the life of me understand why people get so upset with that. He is a good cornerback, and that is fine. Can the Bears re-sign him? Is he a benefit here? Yes, but you have to you can't just say, fuck it. We gotta sign him no matter what the price is. You cannot.
And again, if you're going to pay a guy $20 million, as great as Jair Alexander is, and he's wonderful, he's injured a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
He's missing a lot of games recently. Of that list that I showed you, there's only 8 guys, I think, on that corner list or something like that. 9 guys making north of $15 million. JJ isn't in that list. JC Jackson should not be paid as much as he is. And he's at 16. They're not there. JJ is a wonderful player, but he does not move the needle big time for your defense because he is not making turnovers. He's not making plays. It's a big hole, but Eric, you keep missing the point here. This is why you're going to look at Terrell Smith to see how much of a drop off is it. He played really well in the games that he did. Part of this goes into, do we really need to pay him, or do we let him sign and have him be a compensatory pick in a year? That's what it is. And to the other one, Thomas, if we're freaking out about a 2-year, $8.5 million contract of a guy who's earned a good contract because of how good he has been in the run defense and what he does, 2 years, $8.5 million is not going to move the needle. You can't, but that's a player in Billings that you cannot re-sign if you pay a Jalen $5 million more than he's worth.
He's been your best defender.
Best defense. I'd say TJ Edwards has been your best defender.
Well, defensive lineman. I
Absolutely.
totally say by a wide margin.
Oh, it's not even
100% earned that contract extension. Yeah. And I mean, to your point, Cars, that deal is would you say 1.5 million bump?
Yeah, he's making 2.7 million and he's going to go to 4.2 million.
And that's sign me up all day long for that. Cars, we said 4 weeks ago he's a guy that you have to extend.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he got it. It's a great deal. And listen, is there some back and forth to this deal being announced
Absolutely.
today, that is a deal when Jalen Johnson comes out and says, yeah, if Montez Sweat, they trade for Montez Sweat, the trade doesn't bother me, but if they pay him, before they pay me, yeah, that would bother me a little bit.
That's
You pay your guy. So that what the Bears do, the 24 hours later, they went out and paid one of their own to send a message to the locker room. And that if you don't think that doesn't go on, it 100% goes on. The Bears have been notorious to do that. I mean, pre Ryan Poles, that was about Jerry Angelo used to do. You remember the Bernard Berrien and Lance Briggs free agency?
Oh yeah.
When everybody was positive Briggs was gone, and then Bernard Berrien went to Minnesota and never never left. And what was it? Within 15 minutes after they announced the deal of Berrien in Minnesota, then miraculously, hey, look who resigned in Chicago. Lance Briggs did. It's all about money. It's about guaranteed dollars. And when Jalen Johnson says, oh, I'm not going to negotiate in season, guess what? If he gets the number that he wants, if he hears that, and that he hears that on December 1st or whenever, he'll sign the deal.
Well, but also, Sweat is going to get signed first.
Oh, hell yes, he is.
He plays the premium position.
Yeah.
Like that factors in. Because guess what? You have a good pass rush. Your cornerbacks look better. So I just it's such a mess. Like this whole line of thinking of just like, of where it's at. There's ego involved. There always is. There always should be, to be candid. You want your guys sitting down. You want Jalen Johnson thinking that he's the best cornerback in the league. You absolutely want that. But
right. But Jay Sanders, this goes exactly to what Cars was talking about with Montez Sweat. Baltimore gave up a second-round draft pick. They gave up a fifth-round draft pick. They gave up linebacker A.J. Klein for Roquan. Were they going to let him walk? Or were they going to pay him a lot of money? They made that it's almost identical to what the Bears did. The Bears didn't give up as much.
And they signed him on January 11th.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, people are having a meltdown because Montez Sweat hasn't been signed yet, but there's time, and I do think it gets done soon. I don't think this is going to be a deal that gets done in January.
No, I think Jalen is the one that lingers.
I think it was very significant of what Ryan Poles said. If you go back, he said, yeah, we're working on getting a deal done now. He said those were his exact words when he talked about it. Now. Yep.
So, I mean, the last part of this, and we're running long, I just want to flash it up real quick. They will always look at where the top free agents are. And when you look at this list, I expect some of these names. Josh Allen, at this point, being a free agent is sort of shocking to me, but he's there. Burns, Higgins, Patrick Queen, who does not get enough credit in Baltimore for what he brings to the defense. So the Bears will then compare their own free agents, their cap. They'll do just like I did for Sweat and Jalen. They'll build out comparable deals for these guys as to what they think. And so this could also be part of that conversation when it comes to Jalen. With Jalen, I'm just making it up. Please stay in your seats. But, Jalen, let's just say they know that he wants $18 million a year, but they can go out and sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for $15 million a year. Guess where they're going? They're going to look at where they could potentially save them that money.
I think his name is CD Deuce now, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not going to go take a deuce. And I don't want to see you take a deuce. So thank you for that.
Speaking of deuces, Ryan Cox chimed in, said that Adam Hogan said that you could possibly see a deal by Sunday.
It would not shock me. And
before he takes the field,
all of it is in play. And I think these are the things though that all franchises have to do. I used to complain about my Bulls back in the day when they overspent for Kirk Heinrich and they overspent for Luol Deng,
Mhm.
and it was a couple million each player. They couldn't make additional moves because they were so cash strapped.
Yep.
And what we did, and what is one of the most Chicago things they ever did is, you know why Kobe Bryant never ended up in a Bulls uniform? Because the Bulls would not include
Luol
Luol
Deng.
Deng in a deal.
That was
And
a done deal. Yeah.
and we overrate so many of these players. And it's, Jalen is
I
a
don't even
nice.
think Bulls fans realized that Kobe Bryant was scouting schools in homes in Chicago. That's where the deal was.
There were videos of him at pickup basketball games here in Chicago saying, "Yeah, man, it's done. I'm just waiting for it to complete."
Yeah.
And so when you look at this, like, Jalen's a nice player. Listen, Roquan is a nice player. Roquan is still the same guy that
Same one.
Roquan has always
Yep.
been. We're still waiting for his first forced fumble in 5 years or 4 years or something like that. He is given so much more autonomy there. Like everybody, he was a weak side linebacker here. He was not going to play the middle. Does not force turnovers. He does not do all of these different things.
It was a much bigger deal than just Luol Deng.
Yes. Yes.
But the Bulls not wanting to include him as part of the package is what nixed the deal.
Yeah. So I mean, he's doing great, but he's also not asked to do as much. For me, the way I look at it, you don't pay $20 million a year for a guy that doesn't really take over. And there's so much fluff around God, how good their defense has played and all of these things since then. If you look at those teams, they played a lot of bad, bad, bad offenses since he's been there. And that factors in. It's no shame at him. He's not a guy I'm playing 20 million a year. And that's why he's not here. And I think that same conversation is with Jalen. He's a nice player. I'm not paying him 18 million a year. I'm not paying him 20. Around 15, sure. That's where it taps out. And I think all the teams do that regardless. And for everybody that wants to say, well, Baltimore's been to the playoffs twice since they've won that Super Bowl. Twice. And yeah, I'm going to answer this the last time, and then it's just going to be exhausting. Yeah, everybody's going to get money. That's the way it works. The good teams don't overpay. That's the bottom line. You don't overpay until you're close. Baltimore believes they're close. They will overpay. The Bears are not close. You don't overpay.
Yeah, and
That's it.
Ryan Poles offered him a deal.
18 million a year.
Yep.
18 million is where they maxed out at. He wanted 20.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's it.
I forget real quick just to go off the Bears, but was it Eric maybe in there? If you go just Google Kobe Bryant almost a Bull, he literally is talking about it in a one-on-one with Shaq. He's like, "Oh, it was done. Yep, Luol Deng." But yeah, it's crazy to think about. But yeah, I mean, we're an hour 33 in, Cars. I mean, do you have anything else that you want to?
No, I
that you need to
think
cover?
you just look at it again that way and understand that these are conversations that are happening. This is what at this moment going into this week, this is what Ryan Poles and staff is doing. They're going to have these meetings without the coaching staff, and they're going to have these meetings with the coaching staff. So it's going to be a combination of scouts, front office people talking about the jobs the coaching staff is doing or isn't doing. And then they're going to talk it to the staff and see what the staff is interpretations
Right.
of the players to make sure that they're on the same page. But right now, this is for Flus to think that he's got any chance of keeping his job. This trade and these next several weeks have to be a launching point. If they are not, it's done, and it potentially does take Ryan Poles down with it.
Yeah, just real quick, Bob. No, I don't. don't. I think
He's a pass rusher. You pay for that regardless. He fits. He's
and
played both 3-4
he's
and
scheme
4-3.
versatile. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's and what makes him even better is that he's probably a better run defender than just
Yeah.
pure pass rusher. So he's a complete defensive end, and that's those just don't hit the market
No, not at all.
unrestricted. So with that being said, I think we're gonna get out of here. So
Absolutely. Thank you,
that
everybody.
brings another week of TTNL Network programming to an end. We will see you guys again this Sunday as soon as Bears versus Saints goes final. For your TTNL patrons, we'll see you at halftime of Bears versus Saints as we break down the first half. And then, of course, BHL will go live immediately thereafter. But one programming note for next week, a week from tonight, we'll be the team playing on Thursday Night Football. So that means no Cars Keys next week.
Yes. Sorry, it gets
Yeah, you fuckers can leave us alone for a night.
it gets
I'm kidding.
depressing.
I'll be on. Cars will be watching the game, and Shane will still be on air. But yeah, no, we love you guys. We appreciate your loyalty.
Absolutely. I do appreciate it very much.
Horns thrown. Got to go through these real quick. Great show. Appreciate what you guys put into the show.
I appreciate that.
Lance, $5. This Flu's defensive play calls look a lot better with the yeah. They would look a lot better with a legit I mean, and this isn't a shot at Dexter. Next, I think I know
No,
where
he's
Cars is going.
ascending.
Yeah, and you put a legit 3 technique in here from game 1. Listen, you put a disruptor in the middle of any defense. It makes it makes everybody's job easier, especially in a cover 2 defense. I mean, where it's absolutely critical.
The one thing I take this with that is he looked better when he was being aggressive. Last week he went back to being kind of wimpish in his play calls. That makes just as much of a difference. You got to, if you sit down and be more aggressive with those 2 positions, that's a good thing. You don't need to do either or. Stay aggressive and have a defensive end in 3 tech.
Right. Bears fan Goomba, if they only fire Getsy, what about someone like Pep Hamilton or Jim Caldwell?
Jim Caldwell is the most likely of those names because he can't get another gig really anywhere, and it gets him back in. I think that's a very good name to use.
Yeah,
Pep, I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, they all got to go.
Or the other one is Josh McCown as an up and coming guy would be another player that they would look at.
Yeah, I think his next step is head coach.
The Chicago Bears, most likely.
Yeah, I think he's going to be definitely involved. So we'll see. Like I said, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you for episode 30 of Cars Keys, exactly 2 weeks from tonight. But beyond that, Cars, we good to go?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah. See you guys. Bears versus Saints. Let's go. Bear down.